Hey everybody, I'm back with another video. Actually, I just got through filming a whole bunch of stuff and I'm going to try to make some sense of it and shorten it down a little bit at least, but it's a lot of filming. I did a lot of work on some AR2s from an Atari and testing the speakers and crap like that and the amps and stuff. So anyway, that's what we're going to do in this video. Alright, so I have a bunch of AR2s actually because I'm rebuilding a lot of Atari vectors. I have a Major Havoc, Black Widow, a Space Duel, and Gravitar, and a Quantum. Probably don't even have enough power supplies for all those, and none of them are fully together yet. But anyway, this is the one that was out of my Gravitar / Black Widow conversion cabinet. And one thing I wanted to point out is this was an 04 power supply. The -5 volts as well as the +12 circuits are completely missing from this one. The other thing I wanted to show is that this has Nichicon, I don't know exactly how you say that name of capacitor, but these are pretty well known to be almost, I know Andrew B on klov says he never replaces the capacitors on these. We're going to test them. It was also interesting, it has this kind of potential variable resistor in here for a 5-volt adjustment. I don't know if that was replaced. Nope, looks original to me. Yeah, I don't know. That looks original, but let's see here. 1982 2N3055, which is the voltage regulator, right? And so, yeah, anyway, so I wanted to show that. That's a 04. Then I have these 02 power supplies that I have no idea where I grabbed it from. I must have already recapped some of these, and these caps that I used was Ritchie. I might have had this from Bob Roberts or something, these caps. I don't know if all of them are Ritchie or not. And these two might be original, but they're not Nichicon or whatever. Nichicon. I don't know how you say it, but so we're gonna test those two. This is a 02 power supply, as you can see right there. It does have the -5 and +12 volt voltage regulators. This one is an 03 power supply, probably out of a missile command. And one of the key difference here, let's see, you can almost tell because of the date codes on the 2N3055s. This one is a 1980, which is when Missile Command came out, versus 82, which is around Black Widow time frame. And this one, might be a Tempest or something. It's a 1981 original 2N3055. The key difference on the 03 is really, if you can see here, are these power resistors. I guess I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're missing on the 12 volt side. The Missile Command uses more 12 volt voltage or amps current and -5 amperage, so you actually have a 15 ohm resistor here versus an AR2-02. You have a 22 ohm resistor there. So these two resistors, it's removed on the 12 volt line, and it's changed location. Well, is it changed location? No, it's just shorter, I guess, to support the shorter type of leads on that resistor. So, and then you can see there's just basically a jumper, so no resistor at all on the 12 volt line for that. And then lastly, this one over here is an 02 date code 1982. Does have a serial number on it. I don't know if that was in my Space Duel or not, but I grabbed this somehow, and it does have these Nichicon caps. So the first thing I'm going to do is just test some of these caps and show the results real quick, and why you probably don't need to replace them, as Andrew B says, but I did find some that we might want to replace, the ones that potentially I already replaced. So I'll be right back. Okay, so this isn't the greatest ESR meter, but it'll give us a good comparison anyway. So this is a 3300 35 volt cap, and it's reading 0.058 ESR, which is pretty low. And we'll just check this one here. 0.048. Now all three of these are 470 microfarads. And it's pretty close. You can see around 0.1 or something. And these leads aren't the greatest. That's why I don't really like this meter great, but it does, if you're just using it to compare to things, it's fine, but it's like the connectors aren't great. I've talked about that in the past. So 0.1, which is probably fine. And I'm not going to pull these and measure capacitance, but you get the idea. Something around 0.1 or lower is going to be fine on these 470s. And this is a 1000 microfarad cap, 25 volts. Yeah, it's not great from an ESR standpoint, but it's not, you know, super high either. I bet it's fine. Alright, so that's just the 5-volt side. I'm not going to do both on both sides, but now let's bring in the Ritchie caps. Alright, and ESR is not everything, right? If we want to be complete, we can pull these and desolder one leg and measure capacitance on them too, to see if they're within tolerance. I'm actually just doing the other side of this board. So all of the Nichicon caps look pretty darn good. I mean, the 3300s is less than 0.05. Alright, so now let's come to the ones that I replaced with, I think it might be a Bob Roberts kit. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know where I got those damn caps from. But I must have been working on this one, because look, I even used a radial cap instead of an axial. Alright, and we're going to do the 3300. And instead of 0.05 of the 30-year-old cap, I have 0.137 on a new Ritchie cap. Now, that might be within spec for this cap, but it's definitely not as low ESR as the Nichicon caps. So I might actually replace those and order a cap kit for those. Let's see, these caps might actually be original. 0.09, yeah, so that's good. I'm not going to mess with that. That's for the 470s. 0.08. So definitely a little bit better on these than what I had on the Nichicon ones. 0.09. And we'll check this crazy radial that I'll replace because I don't like doing that now. Wow, look at that. I mean, now this is, what is that? Is that a Nichicon cap? No, I don't even know what kind that is. But that's some serious low ESR though. 0.02 on that 1000 microfarad cap. And let's switch it around and look at these, which these caps are really weird, and I think they are original. I didn't replace those, as you can see right there. These Capar caps. I've never even heard of that brand. It says made in Japan, but we'll check the ESR real quick. .6. So these caps should be replaced. I mean, it should be around lower than 0.1. It should be in the 0.0 something ESR range. And so we're going to desolder these and test them out of circuit, but I'm definitely going to replace these on this board. So the whole point is, actually, do I want to do more testing? Yes, I will test a few more Nichicon caps. Be right back. All right. This is a 1982 board, power supply board. Can you see that all right? There we go. All right, we're going to test some Nichicon caps, 3300s. the big ones. Pretty consistent, 0.05 on almost every board I'm testing. The Nichicon caps, the big ones, are reading 0.05 or better from an ESR standpoint. Let's go to the 470s. You know, 0.08 to 0.1 was the worst we saw, which is probably fine. Wow, 0.06. 0.1. So this one here, this 1000, I mean, it's not great. But it's not terrible either. I'm not going to mess with it. Basically, if you have Nichicon caps, I probably wouldn't even sweat it. Let's do this one. Now these are blue, but they're still Nichicon. Nichicon. 0.04. Very consistent from board to board. 0.04. We were at like 0.05. I'm just going to measure one of these. 0.1, which is fine. .07. So all within spec. Now the one thing is, and then I'm not going to be done measuring caps, but this one has, and it looks original, doesn't it? It does not look like it's been replaced based off that solder. Just looks original, but it's got one Nichicon 3300 and it's got a Nippon, I don't know, is that Chinese? Nippon Shaicom or something? I don't know. But let's check that one out real quick. Got girls yelling upstairs. Alright. Let's see this. We'll check our Nichicon. 0.03, very low ESR. And we check that one that's not Nichicon. It still also has low ESR, so that one's good too. So these boards that I just tested the caps on, there is no need to recap this thing. Again, I could desolder it and check the capacitance to see if it's drifted. I'll probably do that on a few, but based off of what other people on klov have said, no need to actually change anything. I'll check the resistor R30, make sure that's in spec, and R29, which is, where the hell is R29? Somewhere. Dun, 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 that's R28. I'll find it. But anyway, those are on the sense lines, R29 and R30. But I'll check those and replace these the 2N3055s. And that's it. And probably reflow solder on all the connectors. That's all I'm going to do. And then we'll come back and test them. Alright, so I have, this is my Missile Command. It's the AR2-03 for Missile Command and maybe a couple others boards. And I replaced the 2N3055. We had already measured the caps. And I know the 3300s are okay. So just so you know, the caps here, these two caps are really for the audio section. This one is for probably just to smooth out and take care of some of the voltage with the, well, maybe not smooth out, but actually charge for the 10 volts unregulated going to the audio amplifiers, which are right here. The 5 volt section's up here. It's already being filtered by the big blue on the Atari power brick. So that's not a filtering capacitor. It's probably just doing something else, I guess. Alright, so I have this hooked up, and we should be able to test power fine. But the thing is I've seen where our voltage will not be good when we power it on without a load on it. But it should be fine as long as our R30 resistor here and our R29 resistor right there, which are on the sense lines, are good. So we're just going to power on. Alright, and then we'll come and test our 5 volts at C1, and we got 5.1 volts without any load on it. If we go to our 10 volt, we're at 13 volts unregulated. And if I come to, I know you can't really see it that well, but move it over here. This is my minus 5 volts right here. And this is my minus 12. And if we want to check, we already checked ripple voltage on the 10 volt DC line, but we can check it again. This would be coming from the big blue. Actually, let me hit that. So that's our big blue ripple voltage, which is fine, 0.02, as long as it's less than 0.05. And then let's check ripple voltage going to the 5 volts. Yeah, we're at 0.001, and we can check it at a 12 volt line, which is obviously being filtered over here, 0.003. That's telling me that these capacitors here are good, because we would have minus 22 volts unregulated, minus 22 volts unregulated. That's being filtered by these capacitors, and so our ripple voltage over here should be low on the negative 5 volt line, as well as the negative 12 volt line. So that was negative 12, that's negative 5. So we're good. So just some reference there. Now I will power down and then connect, see if that's hot, a 2 ohm resistor right here, which should put about 2.5 amp load on the power supply. If I went with a 1 ohm resistor, which I can do, we'll go 5 amps. So if we really want to test it with load, and I'll pause real quick and show you that. Alright, so I have, well, here's the one thing that I'm unsure of. Can I test it with a load without the sense lines coming back? So sometimes I just go ahead and jumper my negative sense to ground and my positive sense to C1, the positive leg of C1, basically creating the sense coming back. I'm going to see, I don't know, I might smoke something, because I don't know if you don't have this, if the sense lines are completely open, whether this is going to try to just jack up the voltage, you know, pretty high. So let's find out. Alright, so I have my meter hooked up actually to the banded side of CR1, which is also on the 5 volt line, same as C1, which is my positive C1 is tied to my resistor, and my meter's wired up, and I'm just going to press this to see what our voltage does if it regulates it without the sense lines hooked up. Well, I guess it is. A little bit higher than normal than I would get if I had the sense lines, I think. I'm going to put in the sense line jumpers real quick. Alright, let me take it off real quick so I can get it close. So basically I'm taking the negative sense line return, which is in this connector, but there's also a pull up for it, and I'm just running a quick little jumper to ground, the ground test point, and then I'm taking my positive sense line pull up test point, and I'm tying that to the positive side of C1, which is also tied to my load. This is basically just doing what they call a sense mod, where you actually solder these together, which we don't typically recommend in the hobby, but it's basically just for testing, because we don't have a PCB running or anything like that hooked up to it. So this is 2.5 amp load. with a sense mod, and let's see how the AR behaves. I haven't tested the voltage regulator, variable resistor at all. Much better. Now we're at, with the sense lines, we're at 5 volts, and we were at 5.2 without the sense lines in there. So I guess it's probably safe to not have the sense lines, but if I was testing, as I test other boards, I'm going to be testing it with the sense lines on there. Just like that. Let me unhook see what happens when I do that with no load on it. Same, 5 volts. Yeah, so I recommend if you're testing this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the basically loop the negative sense to ground and the positive sense to positive 5 volts to test it. All right. So let me do one more thing. Let's go ahead and test for ripple voltage while we're under a 2.5 amp load. All right, we've got it on. Now we're going to go to AC with a load on the 5 volts. Oh, dang it. There we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. Yep, very low on the 5 volts, so that's fine. And on the 10 volts, before we had 0.00 something, now it's 0.33, huh? But I think it just needs to be less than half a volt, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 0.5 or less. So we're still good. And that's what it was, not 0.05. But on the 5 volt line, we're definitely very low with AC ripples. So, all right, the next thing we're going to do is test the audio section. I'm not going to test the 12 volts with loads. I'm not sure, are these, probably wouldn't want to put more than a 1 amp load on the -5 or the 12, but I know they're working, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Should I test them with load? I guess if I was going to test ripple voltage on the 12 volt line, I should test it with load, or ripple voltage on the -22 volt line. Let me think about it if I want to put load on that. Alright, so I have a 10 ohm resistor here, which should put around 1.2 amps of load on the 12 volt line, which obviously will be loading the 22 volts. So I'm going to test ripple voltage. Now this is only rated for about 10 watts, so it's going to get super hot. I'm not going to leave it on there for a long time, obviously. But, and I think this is a 7812, what is it, a voltage regulator? Yeah, 7812, that's a voltage regulator. I can't remember all that crap, whether it's like a power transistor or voltage regulator or whatever. But anyway, I think it's only rated for 1.5 amps, so we're going to be pushing it pretty high here. Whoops. Alright, there we go. Can you see that? Oh, alright. So let me go ahead and press this. 12 volts. Alright, that's good. Let me actually pull it out. Go to AC. Yeah, we're really good still on ripple voltage on that. Looking good. So tested the 12 volt line. I'm not gonna mess with it too much. I put a 1.2 amp load or a 1 amp load on it, and it tested fine. Obviously you could do the same thing with the -5 volt, but you would do a lower ohm resistor to get to 1 amp. Alright, so the next part that I wanted to show is the speaker. Let me pause for a second. Okay, so basically as you can see here, I have a speaker hooked up. This is actually the speaker out of the cabinet. It looks terrible because it had rat crap all over it, or mouse crap. I don't know if that speaker is any good or not, but I do have negative hooked up to ground, positive hooked up to speaker 1, and we need some inputs there. But before I do that, I figured I would just hook it up and see what it sounds like with no audio at all. And we get a little bit of a buzz out of the speaker, if you guys can hear that. And if I go to speaker 2, even louder, with no input at all. Speaker 1, a little bit quieter. Speaker 2. And now one of these, I don't know which one. See, I bet this one is for speaker 2 and this one's for speaker 1. I don't know. One of these caps is for one of the speakers, so I don't know if this is indicative of anything or not. And to give it something to play, we can plug into our negative here. I have my little phone hooked up. I'll link to somebody else's video. This is where I got this out of. And let's do, I'm just going to play some Arcade Outsiders.
Yeah. But, I mean, really, we're at the end of the tournament. This has been
Alright.
like 3 days of...
So we know that we can hear it. And we know, so that we know the amplifier is working. And if I come to speaker 2, and I change the input there, we know that's working. But there is quite a bit of buzz, which I'm curious about. So I want to try a different speaker and see if the buzz is related to the speaker, or I think I remember this capacitor here, which is the power voltage. Let me disconnect that. The power voltage is on the 10 volt line powering the amps. Maybe this is not behaving as good as it could be. I don't know. So anyway, that's just how we can test the speakers real quick. I know these capacitors tested fine ESR wise. I don't know what they tested from a capacitance standpoint. So I'm going to do some testing there because that buzzing's on. Alright, so I have a brand new speaker here. I think I got this from Arcade Shop. I'm not sure. Power on. Yep, it's not the speaker. Definitely quieter on speaker 1 than speaker 2. So I want to investigate that. That's annoying. I'm going to experiment with another board.
So, alright, I tell you what. Okay. Are you going to tell Tiger to play a song? Yeah, Tiger plays songs. All of the songs.
Interesting. Yeah, speaker 2 sounds different than speaker 1. More buzzing. I'm going to check these caps. These two, this one, and this one. Pretty interesting. I desoldered one leg of all of these caps down here. Can you see that okay, I think? Hopefully, yeah. Alright, and let's measure this capacitor right here. Oh, dang it. I thought I was going to read something different. 3.7, that's pretty close to 3300. I thought I wasn't getting any reading before, but maybe it was because I just wasn't making good contact. Let's see here. Come on now. .10, so that's 4100 microfarads. Yeah, and this one is and the fact that it kind of took a long time to charge, even though it's in kind of, is it the reverse direction? What the heck is going on? Oh, I'm charging it. Or decharge. I don't know what I'm doing. Have to wait. Damn, come on. Alright, I guess I wasn't making good contact with it. I don't know, the capacitors seem like they're good. What could be the problem? ESR was fine. That's 559 microfarads. It should be 470, but it's probably within range. $555. I don't know. I don't know what's causing that buzzing noise. Weird. Have to think about it some. Since I had some caps, this is a Nichicon or whatever. This is a 470 cap. And the ones on board are reading like in the 500 microfarads. And that's 462. So that's 462 versus the ones on board. $562. So I'll figure out the percentage difference, but these are definitely higher. I'd have to figure out the percentage here real quick with a calculator. Yeah, the difference is these are about almost 20% above spec at 564 or 567. That's like around 20%, whereas the new ones are within like 3%. Let's check these 3300s that I have that are relatively new. .3 versus these were kind of all over the place, weren't they? .7. These are probably okay, but oh gosh. Definitely not as close. I'm going to replace the caps and see if our buzz goes away. I have a 1000 microfarad one as well. Even though the ESR was low, come on now, 1024. This one actually did read 1024, I think, was on there. 1053. I'm still going to replace them. Alright, let me do that. Alright, so I got the, hopefully I have everything wired up right. Got my load. Yeah, I think we're good. And still have the hum. Let's make sure my voltage is good. Yep, 5 volts. Okay. And speaker 2 is still louder than speaker 1. Now, on the forums, Andrew B actually reminded me of a thread that even I had opened before. But speaker 1 and speaker 2, the way I'm testing it here is fine, but when it actually comes from the game PCB, speaker 1 and 2 are operating in a push-pull. Right now it doesn't matter because I'm not going to go into all the details because the inputs are inverted on the game board through the LM324, so they're out of phase with each other, so the push and pull actually works. You just have speaker 1 and speaker 2 hooked up, but when you're testing it this way, you can have it referenced to ground because my audio signal is not going to be out of phase when I'm testing one speaker at a time, or I'm not testing audio coming from the speaker board. Anyway, we'll cover that when I get it in the cabinet. But the caps did not solve the problem. So I'm not sure. One thing I thought of is I actually was wondering if it's some type of grounding issue. I'm going to hook up I'm going to ground the chassis of my power brick to the power board and see if that makes a difference. No difference at all. So it could be the TDA 2002s, even though they work, they might be causing some buzzing. So I ordered some TDA 2003s, which are can support a little bit higher voltage, do a little bit more watts. It's not going to matter because the voltage isn't changing going into them, but those were available at a little bit cheaper cost than 2002s. Both of them are no longer manufactured, and I think you can get you can also use, I think, a LM383 maybe or something, I can't remember. So the speaker buzz is going to have to wait, but I still think replacing the caps is probably the right thing to do, because they were measuring, these were almost all at the 20% range, plus or minus 20%. Like this was around 4,000 microfarads instead of 3,300. This one was at like 3,800 versus 3,300. So they were definitely drifting, and all of these were like 570. These in the audio section especially were like around 560 or 540 or something. This one was a little bit better, but I would say this power supply is tested fine. I do have a 1 ohm resistor that I could use to test, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and go through testing other ones real quick before I start doing the other boards. Just wanted to show this is what the leg levelers look like. Terrible right there. Alright, I've been busy just replacing some of the 3055s on different boards, and I got to this board, which is an O2. I don't even know where this came out of. Maybe a Space Duel, maybe something else. I don't even know where I got it from. But we're going to power it on, and I also been testing my 12 volt load by wiring in series 2 5 ohm resistors. That's better. Alright, so let's power this on, and you can hear a little bit of buzz as the amplifier powers up, and then it immediately went down, and you can't hear really anything right now. Very quiet. So I think it probably, I didn't even replace these caps, so it has to be most likely the amplifiers. And I do have some TDA 2003s on order, which I'm going to replace. But let me go ahead and get some music, or in my Arcade Outsiders playing.
I love Leo.
Yeah.
Leo is my motherfucker.
Well, he loves Leo. All right, and then we'll go right here. Yeah, and it sounds really good. So this is quiet. I mean, there is no buzz at all. So that buzzing that we heard, especially after it powers up, I'm going to let it power down and power it up again. It's probably the capacitors charging up and stuff, and then, you know, I don't know why does the buzz go away if it has to do with the capacitors. I don't know, it doesn't make sense, because it buzzes and then it goes down. Let's listen. You see, you hear it for a second and then it goes down, whereas on the other board it didn't go down, which is kind of weird. I don't know, we'll figure it out, but I know that buzzing is not normal, and that's something that we should check. So the other thing that was kind of interesting is, let's see here, if I test my 12 volts on this power supply, it's 11.5 volts, but this one is different. One of the ones we were testing before was the missile command, so it didn't have these resistors in there. So I don't know if that's why my voltage reads a little bit lower, 4.8. I had a full 5 volts on the other one, and a full 12 volts. This one's like 11.5, which is fine, but it's a little bit on the low side, so I don't know. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to test some more and see if it's consistent with a 22 ohm resistor on the 5 volt line, and whatever that is on a 12 volt line. So alright, so actually I have a Bob Roberts cap kit. I took out the caps, they're over here. I have a couple extra 3300 caps, and I must have started to recap this in the past. I don't know why I did, because I don't remember what I was doing with that board, but it does look like I saved like a 7812, and this looks like a used pull actually. Did I pull it and then save it because it was working? I don't know. This one looks new, I guess. It's a 7905, so that's the negative 5 volts. And then these are, I have like 3 of these, so I might have done a few of these cap kits before. This is a 2N6107G. Not sure, I think that's for this transistor right there. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to show. Basically, I'm just going to test the ESR here real quick of these Ritchie caps. That's a 3300 cap. And the ESR, you know, 0.15, but that's about what the new ones are as well, so I don't think that's necessarily bad, because it is based off of the spec of the manufacturer typically. And let's see what our microfarad reading is, if we get it there. 3.42 versus 3.3. So what I'm going to do real quick is desolder these caps over here, because I think these ones are not good at all. So let me just desolder that real quick. Got a little clog going on. Alright, there's one. I have to clean up my thing here. Alright. So these are Capar. I don't know, made in Japan. Let's see what the readings are. We're going to check our microfarads first. Capacitance. .25. I would say that's good. And then let's check the ESR. I remember I thought I measured these and these did not look great. 0.6 ESR, that's pretty bad usually. I mean, I'm chucking that. .6. Alright. You know what I should have done? Damn it. I'll solder these back in and let's check for ripple voltage on... Nah, screw it. I'm not going to do it. I already removed them. That's too much work. But I should check to see if the ripple voltage was better or worse with these in there. But anyway, I'm going to replace them. This is the other power supply. I just put all of my Bob Roberts caps in there. A little homage to the good old Bob Roberts and his Ritchie caps. I tested them. They're fine. I don't care. I'm using them. I am not using the Toshiba 2N3055. But anyway, let's. I have my 10 ohms on my 12 volt for a 10 ohm load on my 12 volts. I got a 1 ohm load on my 5 volts, which should be about 5 amps. And again, listen to the speaker here as I power up. You can see how it goes quiet right away. And it's quiet on both of them. So that's the way it should sound. Now, also, let me check my minus 5 volts. Minus 5.15 and 12 on the nose. So I'm curious about that other one that was a little bit low. This one's fine. Your minus 5 can be like almost up to 5.5 if needed. And my 5 volts is 5 volts. And I can adjust it. I messed with this variable resistor right there as well. So this power supply is working with a good 5 amp load and a 1 amp load on the 12 volt circuit. And if I check my AC ripple voltage on my 12 volts, .0004 on my 5 volts, .0004, which is pretty good. That's the 10 volt. That's my, oh, that's a little high for some reason right now. Why is that so high? Oh, probably because I have more of a load on it now. So I'm at like 0.5 with a 5 amp load. Maybe that big blue is getting, oh, something's smoking. What is smoking? I think my resistors are cooking the cardboard maybe. Or maybe it's the dust on this resistor right here, because that's on the 12 volt line. Anyway, interesting. 0.5 volts of ripple voltage on the 10 volt line coming from the big blue, because that's the first time I put a 1 amp load on it. Alright, so real quick, coming back to the board that had the low -5 and low -12, I replaced the 7905 and the 7812 transistors. Now, this one didn't even have a silica pad on it, so maybe it was working, but it was something, it was shorted or something. I don't know what was going on. It didn't have a silica pad, or maybe that one didn't. I'm not sure. One of them didn't, which is kind of weird. And I didn't have any leftovers, so I had to use like a mica with some thermal paste there. But the other thing is the plastic screws were very heat stressed and broke up quite a bit. But alright, powered on, and I have a load here. I have basically a 10 ohm 1 amp load on the 12 volt. And let's see what we get here. Our -5 is now -4.963, and our 12, even with a load, is 12.14. See what it is without a load. 12.13, as you can see. Alright, that's it. This one's fixed and ready to go. Okay, so I figured we'd get serious about this buzzing noise. So this is my Missile Command AR, new Nichicon caps. I haven't touched the TDAs yet. And I got this little decibel meter. I'm using microphone here so we can put it on the speaker and get it consistent. There's a little bit of background noise right now, so I'm going to come back. Okay, there's the background noise. It's gone. So we're at about 5 decibels. So let me reset. That was on speaker 2 with a 1 amp load, because I think this is how much buzz we have has to do with the ripple voltage. So this is a 1 amp load, and we're measuring ripple voltage right there, I believe. Alright, so definitely quieter. Can I scale here? I can't look back, but we went from like 5 to 30 something, I think, on speaker 1, and 5 to 40 something on speaker 2. So speaker 2 is definitely louder. And now let me hook up a different one. This board right here that we just recapped. I'm going to hook this one up and we'll measure it. Hopefully you can see this. We're going to reset. We're going to get a speaker 2. So it went all the way up to 50 and then came back to 20. You can see that right there. So this one's definitely quieter by 10 dB, I guess. I don't know why. Ripple voltage is 0.3. Even quieter on the other one. The ripple voltage is messing with the, look at that. That's pretty bad ripple voltage there. Alright, down the rabbit hole we go. I'm going to take my bench power brick here, and it does have, looks like it has some corrosion on one of the leads, and I have a couple big blues there, so gonna take that out and test it. Unfortunately, my meter only doesn't go high enough to measure 27,000 microfarads. I think it only goes up to 20,000, but we can check ESR, so that's what I'll do. And I do have an LCR meter too, but I don't think I'm going to use that. I pulled out the big blue, and it's measuring, sorry for the glare there, 0.113. And I'm just holding this real quick. Let me do this one here. .04, so definitely this one's definitely better. Yeah, 0.04. And let me try this one. I'm wondering if ripple voltage impacts the caps on the board as well. I'm not sure. 0.04, so basically it's better for sure versus 0.1. Or 0.09. I don't know if this one's bad or not, but we're going to replace it and see if we get it any better. Okay, so let's see here. I replaced the big blue with that gray one back there, and I guess that is the only new big blue. I think this other one I had is used, even though it was reading somewhat okay. All right, so this is one. Yeah, let's check the decibels. All right, ready? Under 20 decibels. Now I got background noise coming in, but much better Hopefully, can you see that okay? It's 0.2 in my AC ripple voltage with a 1 ohm load on the 5-volt line, which is about 5 amps. So now I have my furnace kicking on, so the numbers are a little bit off. But that, I think that is what our noise was. So let me put my other AR on here and see what it does. You can see this somewhat. This is my one. It says it, oh, this is my missile command. Yeah, it says it has speaker buzz. Everything's hooked up, 1 ohm load. Everything's the same. So a slight more buzz, I mean about 5 dB higher. So it's not just, yeah, and it's on speaker 2 it's about 10 decibels higher. Interesting. So there is a difference between this board and the buzz and that other board. And you see how it goes straight up and just stays there. I don't know if you can see that. Alright, check this out. See how it stays? It goes up and then stays right there. It never comes back down. Let's see what speaker 1 does. Up and then does come back down, which is interesting. Alright, one more time with my other board here real quick. This is the one I did the Bob kit on. Let's see here. Let me reset. Alright, that was speaker 1. Speaker 2 is even quieter. Alright, so I took this is my questionable board, the missile command board with the buzz, or more buzz. I took these CA 2002s off of this, and they actually have the silica or whatever pad on the back, whereas my other ones didn't. They were just screwed in with metal screws, and it definitely looked like they were never replaced. So I just put them back in right now. So I just swapped them out from my one board that had less noise to this board, and we're gonna test it out. But I did note the difference that this board here had these little pads on there. Alright, so let's go here. We'll reset. There's a refrigerator running in the background, but alright, so you can see it raised up and then came back down. I don't know if we were getting that on both of ours before. Let's go to speaker 2. And it was about 20 decibels, but there's a little bit more background noise right now. Alright, I have no idea if this is the issue or not, but I was looking at the schematic and measuring all the resistors that were in these resistors here are in the speaker 2, and these resistors here are on speaker 1. And so R9 should be 220, and that's on speaker 1, and R21 should be 220, and it's 183. And then I compare it to my other board, and it's almost right on the nose, 220. This is the quiet board. And this is a 1/2 watt resistor, so it's definitely getting more power to it probably. See, on the board that was quieter, whatever, those resistors are right on the nose, and these resistors, especially on speaker 2, are reading a bit off. And just for reference, basically all of these resistors you can measure in circuit to the schematic. So I'm going to replace R21 with this resistor up here, swap them. I don't think I have a 1/2 watt, so and let's see if it's fixed. It's like going way overboard. Most likely it's not the resistor. I just swapped resistors, and this one in circuit reads 183. The one I pulled out does read closer to 220. So why is it reading different on this board than the other board? Maybe it's this capacitor C14. I'm going to check the schematic and see if C14, and maybe swap that out. I think I'm getting somewhere, but I'm not sure. But I tested all these components. Totally going overboard on this thing. But if I measure, everything's back the way it was. And if I measure in circuit here, well, you can't see. There we go. On R21, I get 218 when I removed the amplifier. The difference is the amplifier. If I put in a different amplifier, so this is the one I removed, and if I put in a different one, let's see if I can do it without soldering real quick. There we go. Let's see if it's making contact. 215 versus this one. Nah, it's probably not touching. Let's see if there we go. Anyway, it was like 180 something with this one. And let me solder this one in there and see what we get, I guess. Alright, I just put it back and pushed it down a little bit so it's making contact, hopefully. So this was the amp that was in there. Now it's not making contact. There we go, 183, right? Take that amp out. 218, put this amp in. $216. Yep. All right, so the amplifier, based off of the resistance being received probably on, I think it's pin 2, I'm not sure, is probably, determining what the volume is or something, and less resistance, more volume, more hum or buzz. That's my expectation. So I don't know if that means the amplifier is bad. It just means it's different. It's got some different internal characteristics. So, all right. So let's see if I can do this here real quick. I went ahead and put in put in one of the old amps back in. Let me see here if I do this real quick. Alright. We got our decibels right there. Reset it. And then we're going to watch the line. And it just rises and stays high. It never comes down. It's around 30 something decibels. Alright, so I am thinking that amp is bad. And then I went to look at the one I just had in there. And can you see the resistance? And if I check resistance from pin 1 to pin 2, on this one, this is the one I just took out, 186K. Pin 2 to 3, which is ground, 19K. And on this one, pin 1 to 2, 23 million ohms. 23 million ohms to pin 2 to pin 3. I'm going to pull this one out. I'm thinking that this maybe this one's good. I'm not sure. We're going to experiment here. Okay, so I swapped, let's see, the CA 2002, which is one of the, is that one of the originals? I'm getting confused now. But anyway, this is the one that was just in there. Oh, let me change resistance. Pin 1 to pin 2, 21 million ohms. Pin 2 to 3, 21 million ohms. So it doesn't read that much different. But now let's hold this up if I can, so you guys can see it. And then we're gonna power on. So definitely a different behavior, because it went up and then came back down. It was right around 20 decibels versus like it was at 30 before. So I don't know. I think it's got to be the amps. And one of the ways to kind of see, I guess, is just to measure R21. Why is R21 reading high now? Let me unplug. Oh, maybe because of this too. Take that off. Yeah, I had the speaker hooked up. So 218 ohms. Before I was reading 180 something, which I don't think was right. And that kind of, but I think I'm done now. I'm done messing with this. I'm gonna put my and actually right before I started filming again, I accidentally plugged in the wrong connector, the 36 volt AC connector in, and blew a fuse on my brick. It blew F4 right away, and also blew CR4 right there. I had to replace it because I was being a jackass. Alright, I think that's it. I'm done filming these AR2s. The bottom line is the amps, you know, I might start testing the amps a little bit better and replacing them since they're old and stuff. But even though it was making noise, it was a little bit louder than it should have been, I think. Alright, that's it.